Welcome to the Solution Nation podcast. My name is Sean Snowday, and I'm the president of Solution Nation. Solution Nation is dedicated to providing a platform for investors to learn about Israel's most dynamic public and private companies. We interview lead venture capitalists, Wall Street analysts, investment bankers, and managers of incubators and accelerators. Today's topic is the Israel-Vietnam economic ecosystem. And our guest is the president of the Israel-Vietnam Chamber of Commerce, Einat Halevi-Levin. What we'll learn today is how developed and reliable the electricity in Vietnam is and its infrastructure, as well as which Vietnamese industries have the greatest pain points and the greatest receptivity to Israeli technology. Please remember that all content provided on the Solution Nation podcast and website is for educational purposes only. Nothing shall be construed as investment advice. Investment decisions shall not be made based on information, written, verbal, or otherwise, posted or spoken on Solution Nation. Conduct your own research or consult with your own investment advisors before making investment decisions. So here's my good friend, the host of the show, and the CEO of Solution Nation, David Wanatik.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining Solution Nation. I'm David Wanatik. The focus of this podcast is the Israel-Vietnam economic ecosystem. Speaking on this issue, very pleased to welcome Einat Halevi-Levin. Einat is the president of the Israel-Vietnam Chamber of Commerce, and previous to that, she was the Vietnam desk manager at BDO. Einat, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm still the Vietnam Israel desk manager at BDO.
Okay.
Israel.
Good. Well, actually, tell us how you got involved with Vietnam. Was it just happenstance, or did you have a fascination with Vietnam?
Oh, okay. I lived 5 years in Vietnam. My husband was sent to a diplomatic mission over there, and I went with him with 2 small kids, and I delivered 2 twins after 3 years there. And because I was a young mother over there, it's helped me to interact with people unofficially very fast. And it's not very easy in Vietnam because of 2 reasons. First, the Vietnamese culture, and this is very important to know, it's very different than the Israeli culture, but also from, let's say, any Western culture. We know it's not a democratic country. It's officially a communist country with a very strong Asian and standing and a strong Chinese influence. So it's a whole different concept and culture, and even the values kind of different. Second, it's very hard to interact because the Vietnamese, not always very easy for them to get along with Westerns or foreigners. Also, the government sometimes not really encourage it. But for me, as a young mother, my kids went to kindergarten with Vietnamese kids. I need to consume services that only mothers consume. It doesn't matter if it's Western mothers or Vietnamese mothers. So I get a very easy and quick introduction with the Vietnamese culture of mother cultures. I saw them at the clinic with the nurse. When I look for diapers, not always we can find the same kind of diapers. I lived there from 2011 until 2016. So for me, it was a very quick introduction and interaction just because I was a young mother. So this is how I got involved in Vietnam. I learned to speak Vietnamese quite fast, because I had no other choice, because the nanny spoke only Vietnamese and her English wasn't good enough for me to tell her, take care of my baby like this or like that. And I had really to understand when she said yes, what does she really mean in order to take good care of my baby. So it's kind of survival issue. I want to tell you that in Vietnamese language, you have kind of 10 ways to say yes. And let's say 5 of them mean no, not really, I'm considering, let's see. But people don't know it because the Vietnamese translated to yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know which kind of yes you got. As a matter, I had to deal with it very fast. That made me dive into the Vietnamese culture faster in a turbo mode. And this is how I got involved in Vietnam. When I came back to Israel 2016, I realized I have a treasure in my hands. I understand and speak Vietnamese quite well. I really understand the culture. So quite fast, I got Israeli companies come to me and ask me, can you help us? Can you work for us? Can you lead us in this process or that process? We don't know about the business culture and stuff like that. I can tell you, I work at the embassy as trade officer, but I also work out of the embassy with only Vietnamese as at the UN, at the UNFPA, at the VTV7, which is the Vietnamese education channel, because before that I used to work at the Israeli TV. So that's make me also understand the Vietnamese culture without any barriers, because I was there alone. So I had to survive in only Vietnamese surrounding.
Very, very interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the culture. What should an Israeli or a Western business person know when they go to Vietnam to transact business? You mentioned there's different ways of saying yes, so they may not always be decisive, may not always know when you have an understanding or an agreement. What else should we know about their culture for business purposes?
First, there's the global Asian culture that a lot of business people know from China or from Thailand or from many other Asian-oriented countries. Like they don't like to be embarrassed, and you never have, even in Japan or Korea, they don't want to lose face. So I think that's the most important thing. And we are the Israelis, and I'm an Israeli, kind of, we can become in a very aggressive, as the Israelis, we can become in very direct and aggressive position. Even just the honesty sometimes don't serve us well, because people who don't want to lose face, they don't really want to hear the truth sometimes. Like you, as a businessman, you come to other company and you want to sell them a solution, technology or something like that. And you have to be honest and tell them the solution you have now or the process you have now, it's not a good process. And for them, it's losing face, because you insult now the boss, the chief, the manager, the workers, the whole company legacy. So first, I'm saying, leave behind the directness, the honesty and directness in the early phases. Okay. After that, I really recommend to be very direct, because in Vietnam they are very direct too. But when you still start with the relationship, it's take a while. Why it's take a while? It's the other things that I always teach Israeli business people when I speak about Vietnamese culture, is that Vietnamese put a lot of effort in order to build relationship and to build trust. It doesn't come with the codes we use to work with. Like if I come to you as American or as a European, we have kind of the same codes, and you trust me, I trust you very fast. I see you honest, you're not honest. I see you fair, you're not fair. It can take me, let's say, 1 week of interaction to understand who I'm standing with and who I'm working with. In Vietnamese culture, it's very hard to understand exactly what they say or what they mean, and soon I'm going to explain it. And it's the time and effort you have to invest in order to have a good relationship and understanding of the other side. It's not 1 week like I do with Westerns or European or Americans. It can take me a year. Okay, so patient. It's take care, and the Vietnamese really used to put a lot of effort with other people from other cultures, even from people from Israel, in order to make, in order to make trust and to build trust and make relationship. Let me just close something which won't interrupt us. Sorry. So this is something very strong about the Vietnamese culture. Another thing I try to explain to, and this is very basic and fundamentalistic thing I want to emphasize, okay? In Vietnamese culture, you don't have the word I, me, okay? And there's no way to say me. That's crazy. That's mean you can't say I love you, and it's mean I can say it belongs to me. You don't have it, okay? It's not because the communist party over there. It's deep in the culture, and you also don't have the words you. Okay, wow. So we in the Western culture, we used to have, we are in the center, and then you have circles. Okay, one circle is my family. Okay, in Israel, in United States, family is the most important. Then friends, then people I know, colleagues, and stuff like that. In Vietnam, sorry, it's like how can I say it? It's like a bee house, okay? It's go by level. If I want to call someone, okay, to say to someone, I want you to have it, okay? I want you to have it. So you have to ask two questions because you don't have the word I and you don't have the word you. You have to ask two questions. First question is, how old are you? Okay, which in Western culture is a terrible question. Okay, when I started, I was 32, I was young then. People asked me, how old are you? I was like, you never ask a woman how old is. Like, that's not polite questions. And the second thing they will ask you is, what do you do? Okay, why they need it? Because they need to calculate the hierarchy, the difference, the levels between you and them. So if I, let's say, even speak to my husband and he is older than me and he's senior than me, I don't call him, hey, you. I don't call him hubby. I call him big brother. Okay?
Okay. All right.
If I meet the president of Vietnam, I don't call him Mr. President. There's no word for that also. I'm saying grandfather, which means ông in Vietnamese. Okay? Big brother is anh. And he will call me em, which means young sister. Okay. And the president will call me Chow, which is a girl, because the word, like a child, because the word of you and me is big brother, big sister, young sister, uncle, father. It only represents the gap between you and me. How many levels between you and me? I'm sorry, I hope it's. Can you give me 1 minute?
Sure.
It's very.
1 second. Okay.
Okay. So that's very important part in the culture.
So let me ask you a question about the hierarchy. Are non-Vietnamese higher or lower on their hierarchy? Or are different nationalities higher or lower than different nationalities?
No, that doesn't matter. The only things that matter, what do you do and what is your profession? I will give you an example, which is a funny example. I was a young mom. I had a nanny in my house. She was 56. And you will see how the hierarchy is important. I will call her Ko, which is a teacher. Okay, it's from respect, but I couldn't call her even old sister because she was much older than me in 20 years, 20 and more. So I called her Ko, teacher. And when she have something she didn't like that I do with my kid, she wasn't coming to me. She was calling my mom because I'm too junior for her to discuss with me about my kids. She was
Even though
calling
you had a higher status. Even though you had a
exactly.
higher status.
Yeah. Because she didn't see me. She didn't see her as serving me. First, to be a teacher, to be a nanny in Vietnam is very respectable. To take care of kids in the Vietnamese culture is the most important job you can do. And they really, really like kids. By the way, their leader, the mythologic leader, Ho Chi Minh, he loved kids. And he really put a lot of effort in education. This is why to educate kids, it's a very respectable thing. To take care of my kids, it doesn't mean she lower than me in the position. She was the teacher of my kids. She wasn't the nanny. She also cleaned and cooked, but she was the teacher. So when we had kind of debate or argument about the kids, she said, "Okay, let's ask your mom."
Okay. So in a business context, let's say that an Israeli or a Western manager goes to visit the factory in Vietnam and the factory is not producing according to expectations. What are some of the best ways to manage that situation? You have to manage it. You have to be careful that you don't cause the local Vietnamese manager to lose face. Is it good maybe to use data and look at the report together and say, here's the deficiency. How can we fix the deficiency instead of maybe blaming the manager? Or how would you?
First, I always say to Israeli business people, and not Israeli business people, but everyone, the most important thing in Vietnam is your soft skills. Okay, the people who's very analytics or very go by numbers will be very frustrated in Vietnam, because it's all about the relationship you can have. To motivate the manager, you have to have a good relationship and trust with him. So it's about your personal ability to build relationship. Okay. So you come to the factory, you see it doesn't go by the way you want it to go. I would say, first thing, read the map. Look who is the people who like really in charge, what's going on in the factory, who really run the things. Because sometimes you think it's the manager who runs the thing, but then you realize it's the deputy manager or the secretary. She really, so watch and learn. Like for the first 2 days, and I did it a lot with factories, Israeli factories in Vietnam, I tell them, let's have dinner with all the staff, chat, offer them some wine, bring some gift, show them a picture of your kids, speak about your personal life. You will discover a lot of information that you didn't know. Maybe the manager is very busy to put his daughter or her daughter in a university right now, and this is not an easy process in Vietnam. Maybe someone is, cheating in the factory, and you will know it from a personal talks. Okay, so the first level is have a chat, watch and learn. Second thing, when you realize what is the problem or where is the challenge, you take it one by one. You speak with each one personally and hear what they have to say. First, they want to be heard. By the way, that's work also in a Western culture. Listen to them. Have personal relationship that they hear they've been heard and they can trust you. And then when you really understand where is the challenges and who work with who and why, what is the thing, then you can have an operation plan, be consistent, and be very, very clear. Okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we do it. And you stick with this program after you have all the data you need, after you really have relationship with the people, and then you can do the follow-up consistently with the program you built and make them feel part of this program. Okay, have some allies. Most important, to build some allies. Sometimes you see the problem with the manager, you have to fire a manager to take a new one. That's not easy process in Vietnam to fire someone, but that's important to understand where is the challenge and how you do it. And they have a lot of loyalty, Vietnamese, between themselves. Every workplace become like a family place. It's a very family-oriented culture, and it's for many reasons. One of the reasons that the government involved in everything. So in order to work with the challenge they have with the political culture, they have to have faith between themselves. Okay, so as much as they can, they build a family-oriented business culture, like in the factory, they eat together, they speak together, they share holidays, kids play together. This is how it works.
So in a larger Vietnamese factory, do the workers sometimes live at dormitories like in China? Sometimes they sleep in the dormitories nearby. And then if I could just ask the second question, in India, oftentimes they have at a sizable company, like a former military figure, a retired military person is sort of on staff to kind of keep some discipline, not in a terribly harsh way, but to keep some discipline. So is there anything like that in Vietnam, either with the dormitories or the supervision?
First, about the dormitories, COVID-19 changed a lot, because before that, I remember the factories was usually not dormitories and close to the people's house. They always want to go back to their families. They had lunch together. They have a kitchen and someone cooking for them. That's important, to eat together lunch. By the way, they eat lunch at 11:30, which is way too early for me, but they wake up at 6 o'clock. So what can I say? So usually they didn't have the dormitories, but I can tell you that COVID changed that, because people could not go back. So now there's more and more factories with dormitories, but I don't think it's going to stay, because in Vietnam, people really important for them to work next to their house. And Vietnam is a big country, but it's not big like China. And the industrial zone where the factories is all over Vietnam. So it's very easy to find people, next to this or that village to work at, and they have the transportation. It's very important for them, the transportation. So usually it's not a dormitories, a factory culture. About the discipline, it depends who ran the factory. Okay, I was in Japanese and Korean factories in Vietnam. That's scary. Okay, I don't want to work there. This is one of the reasons why the Vietnamese love to work in Israeli owner factories, is because in Israel, the discipline, naturally in Israel, although all of us went to the army, we don't like army style discipline. And it's more like personal attitude that Vietnamese like and know well. So no, they don't have like this military discipline, but they do have discipline. Okay, they do, and discipline go by, usually in a good way, like you have bonuses or you have gift if you work very well, also in sales, by the way, in Vietnam. And you have like once in a month lottery and night together and stuff like that. Usually it's come on the good side, because there's no reason to be army disciplines, because most of the Vietnamese, they have a government supervision anyway. So they usually kind of working very good. They want to make their money, and they work better if you treat them better.
Okay. So as far as the infrastructure, you seem to indicate that the infrastructure, at least for people commuting to work, is sufficient. It's adequate. I guess the roads are paved, or they have buses to help people get to work, I'd imagine. What about electricity? Is the electricity reliable enough to run a factory consistently without interruptions?
I can tell you first about the transportation. There's no public transport. There is a public transportation. Everybody go on the motorbikes, okay? But they don't like to go on the motorbikes long distance. So the factory usually offer you a whole package of transportation, which is it's like a shuttle. It's not a bus, public bus. It's a shuttle, especially for the workers. Mm-hmm. And like someone cook for you, you have a shuttle. About electricity, as much as I understand, at the industrial zone, because Vietnam want to be a leading country in manufacturing, and she compete with China and India and Sri Lanka, and so the electricity usually is very, very reliable. I never heard any complaint about electricity problem in the industrial zone. I heard a lot of complaints in the, in the big cities, in living area. But in factories, usually it's very reliable. There is problems sometimes with water or wasting water or stuff like that. It depends where. But they have so many industrial zones, and each industrial zone kind of supervised by the district in this province. So usually it's a point of strength, the industrial zone in the area. It's a for the Vietnamese, it's very important that people to have a good labor offer, that people will work. The Communist Party in the 80s said a bowl of rice for every worker, and they really, it's important to them that people go out and work. Okay? The salary is not crazy, of course, and that's what help you to manufacture, not in an expensive a way, and it's cheaper than in 30% in China, and a lot of company, Israeli company, also American, work from China to Vietnam. This is also from other reasons, the trade war, but it's very reliable, as much as I know. Everything.
Okay. So do the majority of Israeli companies that are looking at Vietnam, do they look at Vietnam as a place to manufacture products, or is there other business to be done there, other services they can get from the Vietnamese, or are particular markets appealing to Israeli companies in Vietnam, or does Vietnam need certain products that Israeli companies produce, whether it's food technology, agricultural technology, water technology?
So you want me to start with where? Like with what Israeli company needs from Vietnam, or what Vietnamese needs from Israel?
So maybe we can talk about what industries make sense for Israeli companies to pursue in Vietnam. So what do the Vietnamese need from Israel? Do they need ag tech or water tech?
Yes. Okay. So the most successful field for Israeli company selling wise, and what the Vietnamese is agri-tech. That's Vietnam is it's a superpower. Have a superpower about agriculture. It's like they really produce a lot of what we call goods that come from the fields, or
crops.
Fruit, fruit, vegetable, rice, and stuff like that. They have a problem with knowledge and post-harvesting processes, and also want to be more efficient with water. And I'm speaking about not purifying water, it's about water for agriculture. So this is where the agrotech takes really well from Israel to Vietnam. It's like really every place I go to, what do you have to sell in agrotech? Greenhouse, any technology, any knowledge that's worked well. And there was a lot of successful deals between Israel and Vietnam about it. And that's one thing. The Vietnamese buy from Israel. Any technology about water, they have a lot of water in Vietnam, but it's not good drinking water. Also, they have the waste system doesn't work so well. So also technology about that for animals, like to feed animals, water for animals or milking cows, water or anything needed, that Israel can supply, and that's go very well. We sell to Vietnam a lot of defense technology. Mm-hmm. We are the second after Russia, and maybe Russia changed now. We are the second to sell to the Vietnamese defense. Okay. Defense technology, HLS, cyber, even missiles and stuff like that. It was published lately, mm-hmm. And the Deputy Air Force Commander of Vietnam is coming to Israel soon to buy some missiles and stuff like that. I don't know exactly. That's go also very well. Anything related to technology, to high tech, any software, a lot of software have been sold from Israel to Vietnam in many, many different kind of fields, also for logistics, anything related to fintech, biotech, meditech. Also, it's rising. I cannot say it's big like agri-tech or like water technology, but it also goes quite well. And there's a lot of deals about that. This is what I can tell you from the Israeli side to Vietnam.
Okay, great. So you mentioned defense. Maybe we can talk about diplomatic relations between Vietnam and Israel. Maybe, can you tell us any history between Vietnam and Israel, maybe going back to the war in Vietnam, or has Vietnam been supportive of Israel in the United Nations?
So first, I can tell you we will celebrate next year, 2023. We will celebrate 30 years of diplomatic relation between Israel and Vietnam. And you know who else will celebrate 30 years? United States. And it's not a coincidence, because Israel didn't had diplomatic relationship, and she didn't want to have diplomatic relationship until the American had started diplomatic relation too, and we follow them. Okay, so anything related to Vietnam, we kind of working together with United States, and this is very strong. I saw it when my husband was the commercial attaché. I saw very well that we kind of go together with the Americans about anything related to diplomatic relationship with Vietnam. So, of course, during the Vietnam War, we were a very young country, and the Vietnamese, the North Vietnam, was part of what we called the non-identified,
non-aligned, non-aligned countries, yeah.
Non-aligned countries, which for us was a problem because all the Arab League countries was there. And we start the relationship only in the 90s, actually, after they did all the reforms, all the war in Cambodia stopped, and we don't have kind of problem with communism like United States have, but international relationship with Vietnam, we follow United States. The relationship now in Vietnam is very good. It also goes together with the relationship with the United States, because from 2015, when Obama visited Hanoi, by the way, I was there, the Americans start, the embargo of the weapons change and many things open up. It's also helped Israel. We already have good relationship, but security-wise, we jump one step upper. Also because of the Americans, but I guess also for many other reasons, like we the relationship with the Vietnamese and Iran a little bit changed. I don't know exactly how. I just can tell you it's changed, and they have more trust, and they buy more technology, defense technology from Israel. Now the relationship is very good, and they all the officials, like the VIPs from Vietnam, coming to visit Israel. We just had former Prime Minister Barak visit Vietnam. Ehud Barak. We had 2 presidents in Israel visit Vietnam. And what we have soon to come, which is the great thing to have, is the FTA. We're going to have an FTA with Vietnam.
So like a Food and Drug Administration, you're saying?
No, free trade agreement.
Oh, free. Okay.
Israel have a free trade agreement with Europe, okay? But we don't have it with any other country, Asian country, except from Korea, which was signed 2020. I think 2019. Vietnam is the next to come. And this process start with when Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, when he was the Minister of Economy, he met someone from Vietnam in Indonesia in a convention, and he thought, we also, Israel, import a lot of goods from Vietnam, and I will tell you soon about it, but why not to have a free trade agreement? And we started a process 7 years ago. It's still going on. It's not very easy. I guess for the 30 years of diplomatic relation, we already will have free trade agreement between Israel and Vietnam. And this is a great thing, because that's what makes the trade between Israel and Vietnam very easy, and also the goods will cost the customers, the end customers, less.
Okay, so just a point of clarification.
Sorry.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So you were saying that the relationship between Vietnam and Iran is less warm, and the relationship between
I don't know exactly. This is not. I'm not a security person. I'm not the defense intelligent person. I just know that for many reasons we could make the relationship defense-wise stronger and warmer. I don't know exactly why. I just heard it from my colleagues and people from officials from Vietnam who visit here, and I see the relationship between the ministers and the government, and I can tell you it's much better.
Okay, so as far as the free trade agreement, I suppose that means lower taxes or elimination of taxes, lower duties on imports and so forth.
Yes.
Are there any particular industries that are targeted with that free trade agreement, or any industries you think will benefit to a larger extent?
We want to include all the industries we can, except maybe from some small things like we cannot include from different reasons, which I don't know exactly which. I know there is small thing. I haven't seen the free trade agreement, the final draft, but I know there is small issue about some stuff. I can tell you, we from Vietnam, first we manufacture, Israeli company manufacturing Vietnam a lot. Textile, plastic, even technology, softwares, or not exactly softwares, but also, the things that the phone, iPhone and Samsung, the factories is in Vietnam. So also some Intel and stuff like that, they work in Vietnam and they manufacture in Vietnam. And we also buy for them a lot of food, okay? Fish, spices. I'm not sure about the rice. I think we buy the rice from Thailand for many different reasons, because there is some reasons the Vietnamese, it's hard for them to sell to European country the rice, and we buy it from Vietnam because you need kind of certain guarantees that we can get easily from the Thai rice. So we buy a lot of that from Vietnam. All of our tuna tuna in a can, we buy in Vietnam. All the rice product, like rice paper, we buy from Vietnam. So this is very important for the FTA.
So I heard a story, maybe you can confirm if it's true or not, but I think maybe in the 1970s, there was a boat of refugees from Vietnam that were floating in the ocean, had nowhere to go, and Israel was the only country that accepted them, and that boatload of people stayed in Israel and had families and are still there. Is that a true story?
It's true. I meet them the Vietnamese New Year called Tet. Okay, and they say, and there is a small. I think there are now 400 people. Their kids speak Hebrew and they look like Vietnamese, but they really raised like Israelis. And there is a group like that. I meet them sometimes when I need good translation. I get the old one who can help me with the translation. Also, in the 80s and 90s, a lot of Israeli family adopted Vietnamese kids. Oh. Now, as much as orphan kids, but now I understand it's not possible. But I know some kids who was adopted in Israel, the Vietnamese kids adopted in Israel and grew up as Israelis for everything. So yes, that story is true.
So back to the free trade agreement, does that agreement or other agreements that may be in place between Israel and Vietnam, does it help Israeli companies that the relationship with Vietnam is very strong to get to other countries, to sell to other countries? So, maybe it could be difficult for Israel to sell to maybe Cambodia or Myanmar or, some place like that. Is Vietnam sort of a launching pad to get into other countries as well, or not really?
There's two things about Vietnam which is interesting. In Southeast Asia, there is a union countries which called ASEAN. Okay, that's related to all Southeast Asia countries. Of course, not China, not Japan, not Korea, and not India, not the big ones, the small ones, which Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei. I'm not including everyone probably, but Vietnam is part of it. It's very easy if you're already in Vietnam to go to the Philippines or to go to Indonesia, which we don't have a diplomatic relation with, or Malaysia, which we for sure we cannot even go into Malaysia. We can get it's easy to start in Vietnam. Why? First, Vietnam is a friendly country to Israel. Second, Vietnam is kind of a hub, not like Singapore, which is like more financial hub, but like kind of a hub that it's very easy to open a company there, not like Hong Kong style, but to manufacture there. And they have a lot of ports, all the ports of the East Sea. You can take your goods and deliver it all over ASEAN, but I can tell you it's not developed enough yet. Maybe after the FTA, it would be even easier because then you don't have barriers at all to export to Vietnam. Will be like export to the Philippines, like from Vietnam to the Philippines, there's no custom, and from Israel to Vietnam, there's no custom. So I guess that will be a good gate into the South Asian market.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you could give some words of warning or caution to Israelis or Westerners that may want to do business in Vietnam. If somebody looks at statistics from Transparency International or an organization like that, Vietnam has some room for improvement on things like civil rights, contract disputes, rule of law, independence of the judiciary, freedom of the press. So what should Israelis or Westerners be careful about so they don't get in serious trouble in Vietnam?
First, I have the corruption scale in Vietnam is not in a let's say there is a problem, okay, with also money transferring. I can tell you that no bank, or maybe there is some banks, but it's very hard to transfer money from Vietnam to Israel or to any other Western country. The Americans put 7 eyes on everything because they don't want to launder money. And there is a phenomenon of laundering money somehow in Vietnam. Like many other countries, also in Israel, we have a problem with it, but you have to be very careful about it. Also, if someone asks, it's very common to give gifts, okay? In Vietnam, in any other Asian culture, I always come to Vietnam with some gifts, but this gift, it's mostly souvenir or some dates from Israel, something from Israel, Hamsa or whatever. But the problem comes with in Vietnam culture, it's different. Sometimes there is a need to pay something, okay? You want to have a meeting with some officials and they ask you to put $200. I recommend never to pay for a meeting, okay? Even if you cannot get the meeting, okay, and you don't have the meeting, if you have someone tell you if you want to meet this and that's for government or something like that, and you have to pay me this and this and that, say no. Just say no and don't have the meeting. With business people, they never ask you for money. Okay. So that's important. Sometimes to promote things in Vietnam, you have to meet government people. Okay. So you have a business partner, local business partner, and he have to solve this problem. But you never risk yourself with giving an envelope for money, even if they tell you it's only to cover the cost of the meeting. Don't do it. That's a problem. Don't speak anything bad about the government in Vietnam or about their leaders. It's not your position, and you don't know enough in order to criticize anyone. I don't want someone to come to Israel and criticize my prime minister, but in Israel, it's very common. Everybody criticizes everyone. In Vietnam, is a different culture. It's not for you to say what's wrong and right in this government or in this country. Even if you have some thoughts, this is something else, and especially for the leaders, they respect them. We should respect them too.
Okay.
Vietnam for tourists is a very safe place, mostly. For me, I never had someone trying to steal from me. If they say they will pay me, they usually pay. I don't have problem with that. Even to walk in the street during the dark time as a woman was not a problem. Just a moment. Maybe, yeah.
Go. Okay, so you're talking about the safety of Vietnam. You feel safe to be there by yourself. What about as far as contract disputes? How solid is a contract that you negotiate, that maybe you have local lawyers draft and the lawyers negotiate a deal and you have an agreement? Can you depend on that agreement to remain enforceable? And if you have a dispute with a local Vietnamese partner, can sometimes a civil dispute result in criminal charges against the non-Vietnamese partner?
Sorry. Okay. First, whenever you have a signed contract, you can trust it. Okay. Until they sign it, you cannot trust anything. Okay. But the minute they sign, it's okay. They respect it. They will follow it. You can trust the lawyers. One thing I always add, and it's very important because the judgment system is very different than Israel and any Western country. If you have debates about fulfilling the contract, you always have to put in the contract that you will go to court in London or in any country you can agree on. I think it's better to go in in Europe or United States, I think in Europe, usually we do it in Europe. They don't want to come to Tel Aviv. We don't want to go to a court in Hanoi. The court system is very different than Israel and any other Western country, but you can trust them. The minute they have a lot of respect for the written thing, okay? Even if they wrote you an email, usually the email is trustable, okay? But of course, the signature is very important. So draft, it's only a draft. But the minute they sign, they will respect it and they will also pay. They have a very good reputation about paying, from my experience.
Do you recommend that the contracts with Vietnamese partner be written in English? Because at the beginning of the podcast, you said there's a lot of elasticity in words, even the word yes. There's 10 different ways of saying yes. So how do you know what the words mean if it's in Vietnamese?
That's very important. We always do contract bilingual, Vietnamese and English, because they want it in Vietnamese and we want it in English. Of course, in Hebrew, it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. So maybe in conclusion, just a couple of fun questions. Tell us what the time difference is between Israel and Vietnam, how many flights there are from Tel Aviv to Hanoi, or if there are any direct flights, how often, and anything about the Jewish community in Hanoi or Vietnam.
Okay, great questions. First, the time difference is, it depends. In summer clock here in Israel, it's 4 hours, and when we have a winter clock, it's 5 hours, which is, it's not bad. It's nice, it's easy to manage. About flights. There's no direct flights. We're working on that. We start working on that before COVID-19, and then, of course, it wasn't relevant. There's a lot of companies flying to, you can fly to Vietnam. The one I recommend right now is Turkish, and they don't sponsor me. So I'm just telling you, Turkish and Emirates. Emirates is a new option, before COVID, we couldn't have it. And it's very nice. It's a good company. It's going quite fast. It's the right direction to the east. Mm-hmm. Also Turkish, I take a lot of flight with Turkish. I'm very happy with them. You can fly also with El Al to Bangkok. Okay. It's an option. We used to use this option when we were a diplomatic family. It was fast, it was good. I think it's a little bit changed after COVID, and it depends of the time you want to fly. But from Bangkok to Hanoi, it's 1 hour and a half flight. So it's nice to have a long flight in one plane. I think now there is another option to fly through Hong Kong, okay, with Cathay, which is a great company. But I think it's only now open after COVID. I'm not sure about it also. But for now, we do Emirates and Turkish. And actually, that's the cheapest, I can tell you.
Okay.
About the Jewish community. First, unlike other Asian countries, there's no Jewish history in Vietnam. There were not Jewish people in Vietnam as a community. The first time that Vietnam saw Jewish people, I think, was when the French was there. Some French soldier, Jewish French soldiers was there, and then American soldier, much more. And the Jewish community mainly based on Chabad, and in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, and in Hanoi.
Okay.
Maybe 100 people.
Okay, all expats. Yeah. Okay. Well, great. This was a fascinating session. Is there anything you would like to say in conclusion, or any other ideas that we should know about Vietnam?
First, Vietnam, I want to tell you that when you come to Vietnam, you have to be patient, and you understand that you cannot understand. And for me, after one decade in Vietnam, I still discover new things which change my whole thinking. Every time I sit it, I said, wow, I'm here from 2011, very intensively. And I know a lot of people, and I have great network. And I've been there, I've done that. I know a lot. I know a lot about the culture, and still, it's a culture full of surprise. And the most important things for the Israelis who thinks they know everything, also me, which gives us a lot of, feel like we can control the situation, is to understand you cannot understand. And you will never understand completely. But with this not understanding completely, we have to work with, to be open to a different, totally different kind of thinking. And this is, with the minute you accept that there is a totally different kind of thinking. Like I told you, there's no word for I. There's no word for you. It means the whole setting is totally different. You can start working and you can start do things and be ready to be surprised. That's the slogan that I will put for Vietnam. Be ready for surprises. That's it. Okay. That's Vietnam.
Okay. I'm sorry, just one more question and then we'll end it. Are the Vietnamese people one people, or are there tribes regionally, or are there differences regionally, or are there different tribes that sort of make up the Vietnamese population?
It's a good question. There is a lot of, first I tell you, there is a lot of difference from the people in the north, in the center, and in the south, because Vietnam is a very long country. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when there was no good enough transportation, it's developed by itself during centuries. The food even different. The North Vietnamese food is very mild, very harmonic, very sophisticated, and the South is like Thai food, very spicy. We have to finish some. Yes.
So are there different dialects?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The T and R in the north, they say cha, and in the south they say tra. There is different dialects, and for me sometimes it's easier to understand the north because I lived in Hanoi, and I sometimes I find myself cannot understand the south dialect. But anyway, it's very hard a language to speak because it's very tonalic, and you need to have a very a strong sensitivity for music. I played the saxophone for 12 years, so for me it was easy because I can hear the tunes. My husband, which is a genius in languages, he speaks 5 languages fluently. He cannot ever speak a correct Vietnamese, and I give you an example. I say, Em làm việc ở Đại sứ quán Israel, which means I work at the Israeli embassy, and Em làm việc ở Đại sứ quán Israel, which the same, only the music is a little bit different. That means I pee at the Israeli embassy. You know how okay. Embarrassed it can be. So people, sometimes Western, if they not fully sure about what I'm going to say, they don't speak. You know how many things I said, and the Vietnamese suddenly, I say something and the Vietnamese suddenly was laughing, and I didn't, it was so embarrassing. But this is why it's a very hard language to speak. To read and write, it's easy because it's Latinic, like it's like English with French kind of influence.
Accents.
Yes, but it's a very hard language to speak. To understand, if you have a good ear, you can understand.
Great. Well, Einat, thank you so much for spending all this time with us and educating us on Vietnam. I'm sure everybody that listens is going to learn a lot from this. I'm sure you're going to make it easier for some Israeli companies to do business, or at least they'll have fewer surprises. So thank you very much. It was very nice of you to spend all this time with us and to teach us.
And thank you, and I invite you and all the listeners, if they want to do something with Vietnam, we are totally an NGO at the Chambers of Commerce, Israel Vietnam Chambers of Commerce. You can become members and get our services as much as you want for free.
Well, that sounds like a great offer. All right, Einat, thank you so much. We'll end the program at this